Hi, boys and girls. So for today in math, we're going to be talking about order of operations. So order of operations is a concept that you're going to delve a little deeper into once you get to fifth grade, but we're going to do a little introduction to it today, okay? And some of you may have heard the terms PEMDAS or Please Excuse My Dear Aunt Sally. And either of those are an acronym for the order of operations that is a universal order. Universal meaning that everybody will always follow this order of operations no matter where you are, okay? And so the order goes like this. First is parentheses, the P is for parentheses. Second, the E is for exponents. The M is for multiplication. The D is for division. The A is for addition, and the S is for subtraction. So if you just read the first letters, they spell the acronym PEMDAS. And again, you might hear in the future, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, or some other types of little sayings. And those are just to help us remember what the order is. But for the purpose of remembering the order now, I'm going to have it written out here. And I'm going to teach you another way to help you remember it when you're solving problems, but you don't have the words written out. So again, the order always goes in the same order. You always follow this no matter what. And this really is for equations that have multiple operations in it, okay? So let's do the first one together. So if I have the equation 15 plus 5 in parentheses divided by 2, how would I solve that? How would I know what to do first? Well, the order of operations tells me what to do first. So if you look at it, parentheses is always first. That means that anything that's in parentheses is always solved first, no matter what. So that means I'm going to do 15 plus 5 first instead of anything else divided by 2 because parentheses is the first order, is the first operation in the order of operations. I personally like to do what I call little branches under the operation that I'm working on at that step in the game. Now I'm going to give you a little hint. Eventually, as you get older, the equations are going to widen, okay? So this is a very simple equation with only 2 operations, but as you get older and you get into later grades, you're going to have many operations. So it's helpful to kind of track your work. So I feel that the branches help me track my work. So because parentheses comes first in the order of operations, I'm going to do 15 plus 5 first. 15 plus 5 is 20. Once you do the first operation, everything else comes down. So every other operation sign, every other number, everything else comes down along with it. So now my new equation is going to be 20 divided by 2. Branches again, what's 20 divided by 2? 10. So the answer to 15 plus 5 divided by 2 is 10. And what I like to do is I like to circle my final answer. And again, this strategy is going to come in handy as you start doing much wider equations and you start doing a lot more work. And it'll become a little more apparent as we do a few more of these. So let's look at our next one. 49 divided by 7 plus 9. 49 divided by 7 are in the parentheses. Again, parentheses always comes first. P is always the first operation in PEMDAS. So 49 divided by 7 is 7. Bring everything else down. So my new equation is 7 plus 9. 9 plus 7 is 16. So the answer to 49 divided by 7 plus 9 is 16. I'm going to circle my final answer. Okay. Now it's going to get a little more challenging because I'm adding another operation, okay? So now in this one I have 3 operations, and it's really important that you follow along here because there are some rules to the order of operations that you always have to follow. So of course, as we said, what's the first step on our order of operations? Parentheses. So I'm always going to solve what's in those parentheses first. 11 times 2 comes first. 11 times 2 is 22. And everything else comes down. Every operation sign and every number. So my new equation is 5 plus 22 divided by 2. Now I have 5 plus 22 divided by 2. What am I going to do first? I always refer back to the order of operations to tell me what I do next. So parentheses was first. Exponents we're really not going to deal with in 4th grade. You're going to get to exponents in 5th grade, so we don't really have to worry about that for now. Next would be multiplication. Do I have any multiplication in this equation here? No. Next would be division. Do I have any division? I do. I have 22 divided by 2. So that's what I do next. 22 divided by 2 is 11. Everything else comes down. So my new equation is 5 plus 11. 5 plus 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, is 16. Circle my final answer. So the answer to 5 plus 11 times 2 divided by 2 is 16. Okay, let's do another one. So again, I have 9 times 3 plus 11, 18 divided by 6 in parentheses. Parentheses always comes first, so I'm going to solve 18 divided by 6 first. 18 divided by 6 is 3. Everything else comes down. So my new equation is 9 times 3 plus 3. Now I ask myself, okay, what do I do next? I always refer back to my order of operations. I did my parentheses. There are no exponents. Multiplication. Do I have multiplication here? I do. 9 times 3 is 27. Everything else comes down. So 27 plus 3 is my new equation, and 27 plus 3 is 30. So instead of writing all the words out, I can just go ahead and write out the acronym. Okay, an acronym is a letter combination that represents something else. So PEMDAS, otherwise we can say PEMDAS, represents parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, the order of operations. And I'm going to use that here. I like to write it on the side of my paper so that I can always remember what the steps are. Okay, so let's start here. What comes first? Parentheses, always. So 4 times 2 is 8. Everything else comes down. So my new equation is 7 plus 3 times 8. Okay, what comes next? I did my parentheses. There are no exponents. Multiplication comes next. Do I have multiplication? I do. 3 times 8 is 24. Everything else comes down. My new equation is 7 plus 24. 7 plus 24 is 31. So my final answer in a circle is 31. Let's do another one. Parentheses first, always. 36 divided by 6 is 6. Everything else comes down. So my new equation is 15 minus 2 times 6. What do I do next? I revisit my PEMDAS. I did my parentheses. I don't have any exponents. Multiplication. Yep, 2 times 6 is 12. Everything else comes down. So now my new equation is 15 minus 12 equals 3. So my final answer is 3. So these are going to be a little different, and I'm going to explain why in a second. So again, first we do our parentheses. 35 divided by 5 is 7. Everything else comes down. What's a little different about these is that the parentheses are now in the middle of the equation as opposed to either at the beginning or the end, okay? The reason that this becomes tricky is because as readers, we naturally read from left to right. So when we start seeing something that we do first in the middle, we have to change the way that our approach, okay? So now that I did 35 divided by 5 is 7, I bring everything else down. So my new equation is 5 plus 7 minus 2. Very important. When it comes to order of operations, whenever you are left with only multiplication or division or addition and subtraction, you always go to what we call a left to right rule. So in this case, because we're only left with the operations addition and subtraction, we forget about PEMDAS and we think to ourselves only that we're going left to right. So it doesn't matter that addition comes before subtraction in this case. we're only going left to right. So we're going 5 plus 7 is 12. Bring everything else down. So our new equation is 12 minus 2. 12 minus 2 equals 10. Okay? Let's do this one again. So we have 48 divided by 6 is 8. Everything else comes down. So now I have 12 minus 8 plus 7. So I'm only left with addition and subtraction. I forget about PEMDAS and I go to the left to right rule. It doesn't matter that addition comes before subtraction on the order of operations. When you're left with only addition and subtraction, you go to the left to right rule. So I'm going to do 12 minus 8 is 4 plus 7. 4 plus 7 is 11. Okay, so it's really important that you realize that when you're only left with addition or subtraction or division and multiplication, you revert to the left to right rule. Let's practice it when we are left with only addition and division. Let's practice it when we're left with only multiplication and division. So we do our parentheses first. 28 divided by 4 is 7. Everything else comes down. So our new equation is 3 times 7 divided by 7. So because I'm only left with multiplication and division, I go to the left to right rule. I forget about PEMDAS. 3 times 7 is 21 divided by 7. 21 divided by 7 is my new equation. 21 divided by 7 is 3. Try it again. Always doing our parentheses first. 3 times 3 is 9. My new equation is 18 divided by 9 times 5. So I'm only left with division and multiplication. I forget about PEMDAS. It doesn't matter that multiplication comes before division on the order of operations. When you're left with only division and multiplication, you revert back to the left to right rule. So 18 divided by 9 is 2. Bring everything else down. So my new equation is 2 times 5. 2 times 5 equals 10. Okay, let's practice a word problem. So when you have a word problem like this, what you need to do first, this is a two-step process. First, you need to create an equation based on the word problem, and then you need to solve it. So let's read the word problem. Derek has 3 full bags of apples. Each bag has 10 apples in it. Derek uses 12 apples to make a pie. How many apples are left? So before you can even make the equation, you have to figure out what step needs to come first, okay? And what's really helpful is if you just follow the steps of the word problem. So the first part is that Derek has 3 bags of full apples. So I can do a 3, and each bag has 10 apples in it. So in order to even realize or know how many total apples Derek has, I'm gonna have to do 3 times 10, aren't I? So there's 3 full bags of apples, 10 apples in each bag. That's gonna be the first step, isn't it? Well, if I want somebody to do 3 times 10 as the first step, I'm gonna remember PEMDAS. I'm gonna remember that the P in PEMDAS stands for parentheses. So I'm gonna put that part in parentheses so that the person or myself who's gonna solve the problem is gonna do this first. So I'm gonna put that in parentheses. Then it says that Derek uses 12 apples to make a pie. That means they're gonna be taken away, aren't they? They're not gonna exist anymore. So the second step would be minus 12. How many apples are left? Those keywords here are also telling me that there's gonna be subtraction. So that's another tip that I would have to subtract the 12 apples that Derek is gonna use in the pie. Now I have the equation that I need to solve to get the answer. So again, PEMDAS tells me I do 3 times 10 first, which is 30. Everything else comes down. My new equation is 30 minus 12 because Derek is using the 12 apples to make a pie. He's taking them away from the total number of apples that he had. 30 minus 12 is 28. So the answer to how many apples are left? 28 apples. Okay, so right now, your assignment today is you are going to complete the order of operations worksheet that your teacher posted in Google Classroom. Just remember PEMDAS. I think it's really helpful to write the acronym. And if you even want to write out the full word for each letter on the side of your paper to help you, I think that's a really good strategy to use.